Ready, set, go!
Age Investigative, the best true crime channel out there.
I'm a true crime channel.
12 Gauge Investigators is the best.
12 Gauge Investigators the best.
12 Gauge Investigators, he's the best.
Prince George's County 911 Center. What is the location of the emergency?
Across 4709 40th Avenue.
You say
it's a fire, and it's catching fast.
4709?
Yeah, 4709.
Okay, what city is that, ma'am?
Hyattsville, sorry.
And what's your name?
We take on the darkness, stare down deceit. Murder in the headlines, justice in the beat. From cold case whispers to killers in disguise, we rip off the mask, expose all the lies. Facts like bullets we load and deliver. Truth cuts deep like a blade in a river. Corruption shakes when the mic goes live. We dig where others won't survive. Keeps rolling through the smoke. Truth hits hard, no time for a joke. Deceit, murder, we name every name. No restraint, no shame, just flesh.
12 Gauge Investigators the best.
When you're in Foley, come get your hair cut where 12 gets his at Nick's Barbershop. 12 Gauge is the best. We love you.
12 Gauge Investigative is the best.
My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome.
All right. How's everybody doing on this Monday morning? It's closer to noon, but feels like morning to me. Hey, Rondi. Hey, Aquarius. How y'all doing? You know, I did a live this morning on the history of crime, and I thought I'd get back on here and do the part 2 because I wasn't feeling well this morning, and you know, I'm still kind of tired, so you know how all that stuff goes. I hope you guys are having an awesome Monday. I had to go get me some coffee, though. If you've never had Seven Borough, the blondie with the almond milk, it hits hard. It hits hard. Well, anyways, like I said this morning, I'm kind of off practice a little bit from doing this, so I'm kind of winging it a little bit until I get back into the swing of things. I know you guys have been deep diving with the Idaho 4 stuff still. But like I said, at one point before I went on vacation, I'm not going to be doing the documents. I might, hold on. I might be deep diving into a couple of them, but nothing like what everybody else is doing. We left off at, where did we leave off this morning? We left off at the pizza bomber, Susan Smith, and Lizzie Borden. So I guess I'll go ahead and start right there, and then we'll go. Yeah, Seven Brew is pretty good, Rondi. It is pretty good. I need to set this up in a way where I can still. Maybe that's the best way right there. Can y'all see that pretty good? What y'all think of my new intro? Those people seem to think that 12 Gauge was the best. Isn't that interesting? Total strangers thought the 12 Gauge Investigative was the best. And I didn't even do a case in a week, 9 days, other than get on and let my subs know exactly what was going on. So, like I was saying this morning, if you've ever heard of the pizza bomber, that was the individual that had the stuff around his neck like a bomb, and it was strapped to a canister, a contraption that if they tried to get it off, that thing would blow up. And if you've never seen this story, I suggest that you go on YouTube and you Google the pizza bomber, because, man, you will trip out at everything that goes on with this story. And the other one was Susan Smith. It says on October 25th, 1994, Susan Smith claimed that a man hijacked her car and drove away with their sons, still strapped in their car seats. After 9 days in a nationwide search, the South Carolina police suspected they knew the truth. Smith had let her car roll into a lake with her 2 sons trapped inside. She confessed to the crime, saying she was motivated by a prospective relationship that was hampered by her having children. She was defended by well-known attorney Judy Clark, but was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. So this was in 1994. So she'll probably be up for parole after a while. I don't know anybody that would parole her. I really don't. Do y'all know anybody that would parole Susan Smith? Killed her 2 sons because her new relationship, the guy didn't want kids. That is sickening to me. As Annie Elise would say, that is gross. Right? It is gross. Yeah, I'm glad she didn't. Lizzie Borden. In 1892, Lizzie Borden lived in Fall River, Massachusetts, with her father, stepmother, and sister when she was suspected in the brutal murder of her parents. The unfortunate couple were killed with a hatchet, and there was no one else in the house at the time. There used to be some kind of saying like 54 whacks, and then they didn't die, so she gave them 57 more or something like that. Oh, that's awesome, Aquarius. There's a lot of places to visit where, this true crime stuff actually does happen. And YouTube, unfortunately, even with my own live streams, I don't give it justice. I really wish that I could do lives all over the country and travel all around to be able to see these places. Maybe one day I will once I retire. Maybe one day I will. That would be awesome. Oh, you've been there too, Rondi. That's awesome. And we know this next gentleman. His name is Gary Ridgway, otherwise known as the Green River Killer. He gained his name from the locations where his first few victims were found around 1982. However, as time went on, bodies were found all over the King County area in Washington state. Women, prostitutes, or vulnerable runaways strangled and dumped in remote areas. Authorities were left with few clues to go on, and the death toll rose steadily through the late 1990s. So we've done the Green, or always get him confused with the other dude, Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway. As I was going down in Arkansas, one thing I noticed about that highway heading west, and obviously east also, but I wasn't heading east, I was heading west. You know how desolate that highway is? And I was thinking to myself, if there were serial killers that were actually truckers, and we had talked about that before, how easy it would be for somebody just to pull over and dump these people out in these woods, and they wouldn't be found forever. Because those woods, the timberline was really green. It was kind of low to the road. So, I mean, if they wanted to, they could abduct somebody, drive 100 miles and dump them. Nobody would be the wiser until somebody found them. And I don't know why I was thinking that way, but, true crime makes you change your perspective a little bit. Grow up quick in this genre. And we all know Aileen Wuornos. We know Aileen because there was a movie called Monster that depicted her story. She was born February 29th, 1950. It looks like 50. October 9th, 2002. Perhaps the most famous female serial killer, largely due to the success of the 2003 Charlize Theron film Monster, Aileen Wuornos confessed to the murder of 7 men. I don't know how y'all feel about Aileen Wuornos. I mean, I think of the crime that she committed, but then at the same time, I think of her life being total crap. Nobody deserves to lose their lives. I get that. Nobody does. So I'm not siding with Aileen. Don't get it twisted. But, her story was one for the books. And then there's this individual named H.H. Holmes. I've never heard of him. H.H. Holmes is considered the first modern American serial killer. Holmes was a former drugstore owner, aspiring hotel owner, and a 3-time bigamist. During the 1893 World Columbian Exhibition in Chicago, an event that allocated millions of people from all over the world, he committed con by charming impressionable women and buying life insurance policies on them before killing them. See, so there's been shysters for forever. Forever. Yeah, Aileen Wuornos, I don't know. Half of one and half of the other. And you tell me what you think about her case. And this was the UT sniper supposed weapon that he used as he was on, I believe, the tower at UT, Texas. And I believe he killed 6 people that day. So that's interesting. Bolt action. Scope. Almost the same type rifle that Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly had. Almost in mint condition. Can you imagine owning this weapon as it was passed down from generation to generation and then ultimately donating it to a museum such as this? In this case right here, I knew nothing about this. And this is a cold case, I think. It says on June 10th, 1991, 11-year-old J.C. Dugard was walking to her bus stop when a car pulled up and a man shot her with a stun gun. Carl Probin, Dugard's stepfather, witnessed the kidnapping from inside the house and attempted to overtake the car on his bicycle. Local and national media became immediately involved in covering the disappearance, and 4 days later, the case was featured on America's Most Wanted. JC's mom, Terry, devoted herself to finding her daughter doing everything she could to keep the public's attention on efforts for her. Do any of y'all in the chat remember this case? J.C. Dugard. See, in 1991, I was graduating high school. So I had just graduated high school, and I believe true crime was the last thing on my mind. It said Philip Gerardo, a convicted sex offender on parole for a previous kidnapping, sexually abused and raped Dugard, and his wife Nancy aided in keeping her captive in a shed behind their house. When JC was 14, she had her first daughter, followed by another child 3 years later. They were raised as sisters, treating Nancy as their mother. In 2002, the local fire department visited the Gerardo residence for a child with a shoulder injury and did not report the child's presence to parole officers. In 2006, a neighbor called local authorities to inform them that the Gerardo was housing children in tents in the backyard. The police did not conduct a search, and Gerardo's parole officers did not properly follow up or ever search the backyard. That's a case of negligence. In 2009, Gerardo and his two daughters visited the campus of University of California, Berkeley, promoting his new church. When a member of campus police officer Allie Jacob became suspicious of the girl's behavior, a background check quickly revealed Gerardo's identity and offender status. By this point, JC worked at Gerardo's printing business and had access to a phone and email, exhibiting all the signs of Stockholm Syndrome. And if you don't know what that is, look it up, because it is basically feeling sorry for the individual that does malice intent towards you, and you start feeling aligned with their propaganda about life, the government, law enforcement, and their own personal issues. When questioned by police, she identified herself as Alyssa and maintained her cover story until after Gerardo confessed. JC was reunited with her family after 18 years in captivity and retained custody of her daughters. She received a $20 million settlement from California for the various lapses in the corrections department that were allowed her captivity to continue for so long. The Gerardos pled guilty to kidnapping and rape. Philip received 431 years in prison, and Nancy received 36 years to life. Here's another case. It says Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Georgina Gina de Jesus were kidnapped by Ariel Castro between 2002 and 2004. Michelle Knight, who was 21 years old at the time of her kidnapping, disappeared on the day she was scheduled to appear in court for a custody case regarding her son. Police dedicated few resources to her disappearance, believing Knight had voluntarily ran away. Amanda Berry was kidnapped the day before her 17th birthday, after calling her sister to say that she had found a ride home from Burger King. Gina de Jesus was kidnapped at age 14 on the way home from her middle school. Castro kidnapped each woman by offering them a ride, and when they accepted, he drove them to his home and locked them in the basement. There they remained in his Cleveland home for over 10 years. During their imprisonment, the women were subjected to terrible abuse, including rape, often followed by the induction of miscarriages. Despite this, Berry gave birth to a daughter on May 6, 2013. Berry finally managed to escape with her 6-year-old daughter. Knight and de Jesus were rescued within hours, and Castro was arrested. Castro was charged with 4 counts of kidnapping, 3 counts of rape. However, at the conclusion of the legal proceeding, a grand jury indicted Castro on 329 total counts. Castro was sentenced to life plus 1,000 years in prison without the chance of parole. A month later, Castro committed suicide, hanging himself in his prison cell. And you know, I can't even be sad about that. I cannot. I cannot. Yeah. So you know about that. So you know about the Amanda Berry case. That's awesome. I might have to dig into some of these cases because, I mean, they sound interesting, to say the least. And I agree with you, Rondi. I think sometimes Ellie assumes too quickly. And this is the exhibit that really kind of creeped me out a little bit. Of course, it was Theodore Bundy, November 24th, 1946 to January 24th, 1989. And like I said, I'm not going to read each and every one of these. I might use them later on for discussing the case. But as far as reading them, I'm not going to read them all. And this, it says Bundy beating victim is just glad it's over. So these are the women that escaped. And this is a book that was written, A Light in the Dark, Surviving More Than Ted Bundy. This is where it actually got kind of intense. Like I said, there are 30 confirmed murder victims of serial killer Ted Bundy, with estimates of potential victims reaching over 100. Very few survived or encountered with him. Kathy Kleiner was a 20-year-old sophomore at Florida State University when she was attacked in her Chi Omega sorority house bedroom. Bundy hit her over the head with a log he collected outside, breaking her jaw and several bones in her chin. He then attacked her roommate, Karen Chandler, before fleeing the Chi Omega house. When he saw headlights through their window, Bundy took the lives Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowen, also Chi Omega sisters, on the night Kleiner and Chandler were attacked. Both roommates sustained major injuries from the encounter but lived to serve as witnesses against Bundy. The subpoena seen here was sent to Kleiner, stating she had to report to the courthouse on June 11, 1979, to testify against her attacker. So here's the subpoena that was sent to her to testify against Theodore Robert Bundy. There's the judge's name, when she's to appear, Monday, June 11, 1979. So there's her subpoena. That is too cool, I thought. I mean, not the situation, but that they have paperwork like this. And this is the fingerprint of Charles Denton Watson. So they're old school. Sheriff's Office, Collin County, McKinney, Texas. Old school. You know, they have a machine now that you go into the sheriff's office and they just, it's like a flat screen and they scan your fingerprint through the glass. They don't really, I mean, they still do this, but they don't do this only. They do the computerized also. This is the Boston Strangler. It was speculated for many years whether Albert DeSalvo was indeed the infamous Boston Strangler, the killer of 13 victims between 1962 and 1964. In 2013, DNA evidence confirmed DeSalvo's guilt in the death of Mary Sullivan, the last Strangler victim. These jewelry pieces were made by DeSalvo while incarcerated in Massachusetts Correctional Institution of Walpole. The bakelit-handled switchblade were recovered from DeSalvo's body on November 26, 1973, after he was stabbed to death. And there's the knife. And here's some of the jewelry that he made while he was incarcerated. I don't know about you, but those look like teeth to me. Does that not look like teeth to you guys? And here we go. One of the famous ones of them all. Jeffrey Dahmer prison glasses. These glasses were worn by serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer while serving 15 consecutive life sentences in prison. Dahmer was responsible for the deaths of 17 young men and boys. Stephen Hicks, Stephen Comey, Jamie Dockstader, Richard Guerrero, Anthony Sears, Raymond Smith, Edward Smith, Curtis Slaughter, Errol Lindsay, Anthony Hughes, Conorak, Matt Turner, Jeremiah Weinberger, Oliver Lacey, and somebody else. Look at them bad boys. I think so, Rondi. Look at them bad boys. And there's the mugshot of one of the most infamous serial killers there is, or was, Mr. Jeffrey Dahmer. Rondi, you asked earlier if there was any exhibits on Charles Manson. This supposedly is Charles Manson's guitar. At the police evidence tag note, this guitar was seized from the Tahoe County, California during a raid on the Barker Ranch, October 12, 1969, when Manson was arrested. The Tate LaBlanca murders had taken roughly 2 months before. Manson considered himself a musical genius, focused on becoming a rock star, and managed to become friends with Beach Boy Dennis Wilson. So there is the guitar, and there's the tag. And here is Dennis Wilson. So yeah, there's a guitar once played by, almost said Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson. Charles Manson. Charles Manson. I don't know where people are. This is a lot more interesting than what they're talking about, I'm sure. Charles Manson, November 12, 1934 to November 19, 2017. His quote says, "I've done nothing I'm ashamed of, nothing I couldn't face God with. I wouldn't kill a bug." The specter of Charles Manson still permeates our culture, a fascinating continuation of the mind control that led others to kill on his behalf. And I made this bigger so that you guys could read this. You go back and read that. Like I said, I don't want to read all this stuff. And I think this was... I think this was a letter to Jeffrey Dahmer. I wasn't expecting a visit with the dental office, but when the call came through, it saved me the trouble. The two have been troubling me for some time. Now it can trouble you. Sincerely, no longer. Edward Gein. Okay, this is Ed Gein. So look at that too. Mr. Jeffrey Purcell and family, General Box Delivery, Puxatawney, Pennsylvania. Can you imagine opening up a letter and inside that letter is a tooth? And a letter, a card. How would y'all feel about that? Would y'all be like, what the hell is this? Especially from Ed Gein. How would y'all handle that? Here's a little more about it. Ed Gein, 1906, 1981, was a murderer from Wisconsin who killed two women, but was also guilty of body snatching from the local graveyard. He kept pieces he collected as souvenirs in his house. A fictionalized version of Gein's story was the basis for the book and the movie Psycho. Eileen Wuornos' fingerprint page from January 31st, 1992, after her first death sentence for the murder of Richard Mallory. Mallory was a convicted rapist, and Wuornos maintained for the rest of her life that his death was an act of self-defense. Eileen Carol Wuornos. Isn't that interesting to have a fingerprint card that that you have a piece of history for the rest of your life? And that's Eileen Wuornos' fingerprints. And here's the Adam Walsh exhibit. $100,000 back in the day was a lot of money. And there's his dad. Now he got a lot of accolades due to doing America's Most Wanted. And there is Elizabeth Smart. You know what was interesting to me is I know nothing about a lot of these cases. I know the names, but I don't know anything about the case. I know wasn't she abducted out of her room? This 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart was abducted from her Salt Lake City home in 2002. Her kidnapper entered through the window of her bedroom, which Elizabeth shared with her sister, Mary Catherine. While her sister was being abducted, Mary Catherine listened carefully and later recounted what happened to her parents and the police. Wow. And this is the DC Beltway sniper, which this individual basically sat with another accomplice and they were able to just kill people randomly in Washington, D.C. And this was memorabilia from the Las Vegas shooting, the Route 91 Music Festival. It says these items were left at the white crosses placed for each victim as a memorial in the days after the shooting. The crosses are made by Greg Dennis from Aurora, Illinois, who has created these simple memorials of mass shootings across the country. Over 15,000 items left at this memorial, and another near the concert site were cataloged and preserved through a massive effort by Clark County Museum. And there was a lot of stuff in this case, but I thought that was somebody's hat and somebody's cowboy boots and somebody's cap. It said Eric Church. I mean, you're able to go in there and read all that if you like. That was a sad event also. I tried to get as much of this as I could. And also taking in the exhibit without just taking pictures every couple seconds. You know what I mean? Brenda Spencer prison pal card. On the morning of January 29, 16-year-old Brenda Spencer began firing her .22 caliber rifle at Grover Cleveland Elementary School across the street from her San Diego home. She killed the school principal and janitor, as well as injuring 8 students and the first responder before barricading herself in the house for over 6 hours. Spencer surrendered to police and was later tried as an adult, where she pleaded guilty for 2 counts of murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in 1980. Spencer sent this card to a prison pen pal while serving a sentence of 25 years to life. Spencer has been denied parole several times, including August 2022. It says, Dear Jesse and Melissa, I hope this finds you doing well. I am doing fine. I just wanted to wish you both a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope you like this card. I thought it was cute. We don't get much of Christmas in here. To have our little paper Christmas tree up in our desk. I fold them out of paper. That way the cops can't take them. Paper is legal. What are you going to do? What are you going to be doing for the holidays? Are you going home or are you staying out here? We have a mail coming back next weekend. Pizza and bagels. I can't wait. Not much is happening here. Just a lot of the same old, same old. Oops. My line drifted. My bunkie is starting a new Bobby Craft project. And I'm going to let you have that for a minute, just in case y'all want to go back and read that yourselves. So she basically went into this school and shot people up. And I never even heard of this person. How about y'all? And there's a Parkland Memorial lacrosse shirt. This shirt was worn by lacrosse players from St. Aquinas in honor of Meadow Pollock, one of the 17 victims who lost their lives on February 18, 2018, in a mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I tell you, they had a lot of stuff in there. And I think this is the same type. The nightclub shooting deadliest in U.S. Mateen killed in shootout with cops I was reading or actually watching this case the other day before my vacation, and this thing is wild. If you've never seen this about the Orlando Pulse nightclub, you might go and watch those videos because it's interesting as well how this individual grew up and managed to get to that point in his life. So, and then there was a little bit about the Aurora, Colorado theater shooting. That's basically where the individual dressed up as a Joker type-esque and went into that theater and shot people. And this is $56.97. Silver Spur. That is wild how they captured that photo perfect. I mean, had his arm been up a little more, it might have saved his life. But he was handcuffed, so he was handcuffed to this guy, and he had this arm free. And I think that if he would have had his arm up a little more, it would have saved his life. But I think when he shot, it ricocheted off his arm and hit him. Hey, Sirius, how you doing? Welcome back. And this was a Martin Luther King Jr. death mask. I don't know what that meant, but these are not ordinary times, and it's not an ordinary election. I need your hand and your help. Isn't that wild? And I've never heard of this one either. The Family Research Council shooting. Angry with groups opposed to same-sex marriage. It says Lee Corcus II decided to act. On August 15, 2012, Corcus went in his downtown Washington, D.C. offices of the Family Research Council, armed with a handgun, more than 70 rounds of ammunition, and 15 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. 10 months earlier, a Chick-fil-A executive had publicly opposed same-sex marriage, and as a gruesome act of vengeance, Corkins planned to shove the sandwiches in the faces of his victims. So as you can see, there's the handgun, there's the clip, and there's some shell from the shooting, and that looks like a bullet. It says Floyd Lee Corkins bought this 6-hour 9mm pistol a week before he opened fire at the Family Research Council. He had a 15-round magazine loaded in the gun, 3 of which he fired, with 2 more 15-round magazines in a box of 50 rounds with them. This bullet fragment and shell casing were recovered from the scene as part of this investigation. So there's the shell and there's the casing. What really got me was the Chick-fil-A wrappers. He was going to shove those in the victims' faces, in their mouths. And I believe these were Tylenol that was sent to Tom Brokaw. Some kind of medication. At this point, I was just snapping pictures. And this was the Virginia College Massacre. And there's the AR-15. And if you've never seen one, that's what they look like. And they're not very They're not a wimpy looking gun by no means. By no means. I don't know. I got to do more research on that, Rondi. I have no clue. I didn't even know that case existed. I have one of these, but it is different. Like, this is green. It's like a military style gun. There's another picture. And this is the history of the Ku Klux Klan. They had the lynching rope, the rings, cards, the beads, Confederate flags, coffee cups. And next to it, they had the robe. I didn't know a lot about the Unabomber. That's why I'm making this into a video form. That way, if I go back and touch on these cases, I'll have a video that I can go back and read on and actually learn more about these cases than obviously I don't know. This was some of the materials that was seized in the Unabomber's bomb that were mailed, because this was a bomb area. And this says American Airlines 444. This is a replica of the bomb planted by the Unabomber on the November 15th, 1979 flight from Chicago to Washington, D.C. Luckily, no one was severely injured. 12 people were treated for smoke inhalation. This was, however, the incident that brought the FBI into the Unabomber investigation. Some people just have a lot of time and a lot of anger and rage towards whatever. And they'll go to any length. And this is the Fort Hood shooter book pages. On November 5th, 2009, former U.S. military major opened fire at the Fort Hood military base in Texas. He was sentenced to death for killing 13 people and injuring 30 others. While being held on military death row, he wrote to a prison pen pal, totaling 51 pages, the book Hassan's rationale for the shooting. His personal relationship and his belief in his crime would protect the military members of the Taliban. It says, man, duty to his creator and the purpose of life. Understanding what the Holy Quran actually says instead of what some may want it to say by carefully referencing the Quranic verses and placing them in context. They were revealed. And there is his rendition of the purpose of life. It said, do deeds, Allah will see your deeds, and his messenger and the believers, and you will be brought back to all knower of the unseen and the seen. The purpose of life. Why were we created? Almighty God made clear that mankind was created for a purpose. Our Lord asks us and declares, and then he goes on to write all that. And these were handwritten notes that people were able to write and stick on the wall of where they were when 9/11 happened. This person says, I was in 10th grade history class when the teachers turned the TV on. We miss you. I was in preschool and I remember all the teachers crying and hold each other's, and they started to gather with one another, crossing hands. I was in health class in 6th grade. We had just walked in. It's so blurry, I can't really tell. But there were tons of these. Furnisant, Missouri, Coldwater Elementary. We got out of school. We got pulled out of school. Nick Manessy. Manessy? I was in 7th grade science class. That day we kids learned a sadness we had never felt. I am still sad to this day over this tragedy. And here are some of the remnants of the Oklahoma City bombing, I think. No, this is 9/11. Look at how everything is just... They put everything together, so it's hard to really, looking at pictures, remember what was what. But look at those sitters, how they melted together. And the rocks. It says first responders. Of the 2996 deaths that occurred as a result of the vicious terrorist attack on September 11th, 411 of the day's victims were emergency first responders. 343 firefighters, 60 police officers, and 80 EMTs and paramedics lost their lives after being called or voluntarily responding to the attacks. All of the first responders who died did so heroically and are memorialized through different charities and memorials, including the Stephen Siller Tunnel 2 Towers 5K. I'll leave that up so y'all can read that. Where were you when 9/11 happened? Where were you when the towers fell? And here's some of the first responder stuff. It's the day after my birthday, so I was quite intoxicated. Didn't wake up till 1 or 2 in the afternoon and woke up to that, and it felt like I was dreaming, like it wasn't real. And this was a piece of metal that was bent, that was donated to this museum. Part of the metal from one of the towers. Which I thought was quite interesting. This shirt was worn by the actor who played Tupac Shakur. The orange shirt seen here was worn by Demetrius Shipp Jr. as he played the role of Tupac Shakur in the 2017 biopic All Eyes on Me, named for the last album recorded by the rapper. The film shows Tupac's early life and career into a tragic death. In 1996, this shirt was custom made for the film to be the exact replica of one that Tupac wore the day he died. And this was, I thought, was awesome. What you would do is you would press like a button, like a number 7, and it would show you like fingerprints or something. That would show you hair on the bed. You couldn't see it because it was so little, but you press the number 5, you press the number 6, it would be like trace evidence, trace DNA. You pressed all these numbers and it gave you different evidence that you could see. You was in the Oriana house. Okay. And those of you that are old enough to remember Tupac and Biggie, they had a little write-up on them. And this is more of the crime scene setup. See, as you can see, there's broken glass right there. But you couldn't see it from far away. You have to really look into there. I think there was blood near these boots. But as you could see in the other picture, the window was shot out. So the broken glass would have been right there. The phone was overturned. TV remote. This was pretty awesome. And these are human bones. There is a body farm where bodies are sent to be studied, and their bones are studied, the density, all kinds of different fragmented parts, especially if they were murdered, if they're donated to this body farm. And these look like they could be tibias and fibulas, I believe it. Those are the arm bones. It's been so long since I did human anatomy. Or no, the radius and the femoral bone, I think. The tibia or the leg bones, I think. I don't know. So this is part of the osteology. And as you can see, the bones. If you're ever out walking around and you bump into some human bones, you know the difference between a human bone and a deer or something else, animal-like. Let's see what this does. So this fixed the light. Wow. That's pretty cool. And there are some teeth. A jawbone. You know, when I got my tooth pulled, I never realized how deep your tooth went into your mandible. I thought it was just a little bit, you know what I mean? But it's way up there. And if you've ever had a tooth removed, you understand. They got to wiggle that bad boy out for a while and then pull it at the very end, you know, to pull it from the nerves and everything. But I thought that was pretty cool. The mandible with some teeth still in it. And this was pretty awesome, I thought. It's like you could press the button and it gave you where there was evidence that you couldn't see without pressing the button. See the fingerprints on the cup? And there's some trace evidence of blood on the hammer. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, those are teeth. And this shows you when you shine the light on it, you can see the trace material. Even the little bitty specks on the article, on the freaking thing, you can see all these things with this light being shined on it. We're getting to the evidence portion now, and this is the same exhibit, but look at how the blood smear was left on this cup. And there's actually some blood smear in the handle of the hammer and on the glove a little bit. What do y'all think about that? No, that was a mandible. That was teeth. And see, when it lit up, you couldn't see any of that because that was just normal light and a blurry pic. And this was the early crime scene investigation stuff that they used very early on in crime scene investigation. Of course, they would have a camera, they'd have a flash, they'd have their little box with all this stuff in it. I mean, I'm really impressed. They would have the ability to dust for prints. They would have dyes, a vintage CSI kit. So they had all that, and they were solving crimes way back in the day. And this is, as I've told y'all before, when you walk into a crime scene, you get measurements and you dust for prints. And these are some of the instruments that they use when they're measuring either blood spatter, bodies from the wall, bodies on the bed, bullet wounds, shell casings, spatter on the floor, all kinds of stuff. And here's a modeling camera where they would be photographing all that stuff. And here's the magnifying glass. The most important thing is the measurements, because without these measurements, a lot of stuff is going to be missed. Because you have to measure the whole room of where the crime scene is, and these are some of the dyes that are used in processing the scene. I thought this was pretty cool. It says, The Adventures of David Koresh in the Temple of Doom. If y'all don't know who David Koresh was, he was the individual in Waco, Texas, who started the Branch Davidian, and ultimately the ATF raided it and it burnt it. It was burnt down. Some people escaped, some people did not. Women and children perished at that Davidian. And there's something for you, Rondi. There's Mr. Manson again. The love and terror cut. The man who was in charge of the multiple murders, the dark edge of hippie rocker. Charles Manson, cult leader. This was December 19th, 1969. He looks wild even then, doesn't he? He looks wild even then, does he not? I've always thought he didn't look right in any photo I've ever seen him. And this individual was murdered, I think. As seen in this photo, Alexis wore this Michigan leotard while competing. Yeah, we have to change the way our society views women. It says Ali Rosman is a two-time Olympic gymnast, three-time gold medalist whose fame added attention to the numerous accusations she shared in her victim impact statement in court. There's no map that shows you the pathway to healing. Realizing that you are a survivor of sexual abuse is really hard to put into words. I cannot adequately capture the level of disgust I feel when I think about how this happened. Olympians, including Jordan Weber, Gabby Douglas, Michaela Maroney, Simone Biles, and Jamie Destain, have also came forward. I mean, true crime is true crime, no matter how you boil it down. You know what I mean? And this is a shoe print that I thought was interesting. I was actually capturing it through a magnifying instrument that showed you exactly how close they can actually see the shoe print. And I was sliding it so you were able to see. And this was, you could see general shoe scratches, tears, and thread and dirt that was captured by this magnifying glass. I thought this was pretty awesome because it let you slide that and you could actually see the shoe having inequities all around it. See that shoe print right there? Kind of like when we watched the Night Stalker, he was partially captured because of the Avia shoe and what he wore where he stepped in the flower bed before he climbed into the homes. And see how you can see into the shoe with this magnifying glass certain objects that you wouldn't be able to see with the naked eye. As you look over here, you can't see that. And then you get it under the magnifying glass and you're like, whoa. And this is a imprint, a casting of a shoe print. And before y'all go running wild, no, this was not the cast print of Bryan Kohberger. And this was tire impressions and also a blueprint that was cast. And I've done videos on this as well. And this is a process used to record detailed prints and impressions, whether the subject is alive or deceased, rigor, or decomposed. Maximum quality detail can be recorded in one application. The process is accomplished by spreading a sufficient layer of the mixture over the friction skin area, allowing approximately 20 minutes of drying time. The finished cast can then be carefully peeled from the hand. So you see how detailed this is. It even gets down to the little area in here, and even in the boot area. This looks like a boot. And here's the tire imprint, which I think is pretty cool. And then this is biofoam impression which is totally different than a cast, because what you do with this is you actually stick the cast either down into the biofilm, or if you have the shoe, you stick the shoe down in it and then cast it. It's a lot more thorough looking than the cast. And if you don't think they did any of this stuff in some of the cases that you've been following, then you're really naive. If you think all they have is what's in the documents, they're not going to put every little piece of investigation in a piece of paper. You're really naive if you really think that. So let me show you the ballistics test. And this is a 41 caliber gunshot residue display. 1/16, 18th, and 10. So I guess these would be measured by the distance in which they were shot at. This would be further away, obviously. See how it burns the side of the gun impact, and then as it gets closer, it burns even more. And there you have a total shredding of it. And there's your boy right there. Do you see 12 gauge? And there's the next one in red, which is also, I can't really see what that says, but this bullet, it shows the impact of the bullet as it goes through the body or any type of material. Obviously how it starts. And once it strikes bone or muscle, then it starts to expand. A hollow point obviously is going to do a lot more damage than that. See, I have hollow points in my AR, so it's really gonna hurt somebody. And for those of you that don't know what this is a leg, a plastic leg of a mannequin. And this is the entry or the exit wound of the bullet. I think this is the exit wound because the other side is right here. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. Let me see. What do y'all think, chat? Do y'all think that's the entry or the exit? Hey, Cash. Hey, Walt. How y'all doing, buddy? What do y'all think that is? You think that's the exit wound from the back? I always thought the exit wound was a lot bigger than the entry wound. What do y'all think that is? Because there was no real definitive way to really gauge this other than having this go through this butt. And that's the thigh, actually. So I would think that since the arrow is pointing this way, the back would be the entry, this would be the exit. Okay, so the back would be the exit? Okay. I'll roll with that. And here we have some more ballistic stuff. Colt automatic 45. Look at that bullet, man. You're shot with that damn thing. Gonna cause a bad day. These were the old-timey bullets, obviously. Look at that bad boy. 38. And that's what I try telling people as well during a particular case. and they wouldn't believe it, but I'm going to say it again. These physical evidence envelopes are all filled out whenever there's physical evidence to be gathered at a crime scene. As you can see here, they're filled out by whoever is signing off for them in a chain of custody. These kind of are different nowadays, but these in the old days had all these lines and everything where people would sign off as they were gathering the evidence. But if it's not in one of these sealed, then chances are the evidence wasn't very, let me see who that is. I think he got shot with this bullet. Back in the day, you could take a lead bullet and still walk it off, I guess, unless you were shot in particular places. Big hole is the accent. And this is interesting as well to me. This is how they do facial impressions of individuals back in the day. They don't do it like this anymore, I don't think. Maybe some smaller agencies do that, but they'd have, cutouts of people, and they just fill in the nose area and the mouth and the chin. And this would be an FBI facial identification catalog that all agencies would have. And there'd be a policeman that would be sketching the individual or the individual who was suspected of committing these crimes. And the hair, obviously. And there's sketching pencils and stuff. And their cranial reconstruction to actually go from this to this, from this to this, which is quite impressive, I believe, because think of how many people have been caught due to this old school way. Wad cutter, huh? This was my favorite, the autopsy, because it actually gave you the strangulation and the distinct bruise patterns on the neck. As you can see there, a knife wound, gave you a gunshot, and then when you press this button, and you could look through this little area and actually see it a lot closer. So the strangulation area would have been here. I think he had a knife wound right here, a gunshot wound over here, and a slash on his arm. But what I thought was interesting, he was missing a toe. And on the other hand, he was missing a finger. And obviously there's a slash right there as well. This was awesome. I spent like 30 minutes on this, looking and reading on it. See, I got a picture of his toe being amputated. What do y'all think about that? Yeah, I mean, autopsies are pretty awesome. I mean, his toe, or he's missing the second pinky finger. I guess you could still walk. Just be kind of awkward, right? And here's a big slash in his forearm area. This is actually on top of his arm, not along the inside. So this is a big old slash on the top of the area. And like I told you, he was missing a pinky finger. You shot my pinky off. Which I think is pretty damn cool. And I think this was a gunshot wound right here. As it depicted a lot of area around it and the inside of the burning. And as you can tell, the strangulation. Usually there's a bone right here that they can tell if the individual has been strangled. They usually break that bone because it's so dense that if you put any amount of pressure than normal pressure, you're going to break that bone. I think it's called the hyoid bone or something like that. And then it bruises around. So in any of these crimes that we are led to watch or view, any strangulation, there's obviously probably some bruising. There's probably a broken hyoid bone. And obviously if there's been any stabbings or anything like that. And this is cool too. This is like a fingerprint fuming machine. It's a proven technique used to make visible latent fingerprints. So latent fingerprints right here. Check that out. So when people think they're actually getting away with stuff, obviously there's going to be fingerprints right here because this is the safety, right? And they're going to be aiming. Hell, there's even fingerprint over here. And that's the case. How it works. It says, okay. They super glue the object, gets heated to the boiling point. It releases vapors into the surrounding air. This is done in an enclosure that contains the fumes. If any latent prints exist inside the enclosure, they will be exposed to these fumes. The combination of fumes and the natural humidity causes a chemical reaction with the element found. And I cut that off. So I thought that was quite interesting. What do y'all think? And this was Marilyn Monroe. It said Marilyn Monroe's dress, long speculated but never confirmed. John Kennedy and Hollywood starlet Marilyn Monroe were believed to be romantically entangled during his presidency. The sequin wiggle dress displayed here was acquired by Monroe around 1960 and was worn publicly several times before her death in 1962. That's pretty cool, huh? I tell you, they had a little bit of everything in this damn museum. A little bit of everything. This is in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And this was just an officer's uniform. Can't remember what agency. And these were some people that are incarcerated for vast areas of crimes. And there's your boy. Don't I look like a convict? Eminem's taller than me. Isn't that crazy? What do y'all think about that? My niece got like 4 photos, and there she is. And this is Judge Perry's gavel. Yeah, that is me, Cash. Casey Anthony. On July 15th, 2008, 2-year-old Kaylee Anthony was reported missing by her grandmother, Cindy, in Orlando, Florida. Kaylee had not been seen for 31 days. I heard somebody say that Casey was hot. What do y'all think about that? Y'all think Casey's hot? I heard a YouTuber say that Casey Anthony was hot. How they think everybody's hot, but you know, the obvious. You think Casey Anthony was guilty? I really think she killed this little girl. I believe in everything I am that she killed this little girl. Well, some of these creators think everybody's hot. She's hot, she's hot, she's hot. I thought a 17-year-old boy used the word hot. They don't even use that word anymore. Guilty? Yeah, I agree. It made me so mad that she was not guilty. She was found not guilty. I was mad at that. When I watched that documentary, I was like, how the hell can this person end up being not guilty? How did that happen? 12 gauge is so rad. Well, thank you, Cash. I don't even know if they use that word anymore either. But I know they don't use the word hot. That's like a word you use when you're a preteen. She's hot. I think the word they use these days, and I heard it countless times on the trip, where the baddie's at. That's the word that they use. Baddie with a fatty, which actually means that attractive female has a nice looking rear end. That's what I learned on this trip. A baddie with a fatty. Anyway, let's get back to Casey Anthony. So I'm glad y'all agree that she was guilty in that, because I agree. And this was interesting as well, because I don't know what people's rendition of prison is. I don't know what they think prison is about. Obviously, they've never been, and all they do is listen to other people's renditions. But these are some of the weapons that are found in American prisons, used to kill other people. As you can see, you can make guns in there out of various objects. You can steal knives. You can make knives as shanks out of plastic, out of different areas. You know, that looks like a little piece of plexiglass. These look like brass knuckles. This looks like it could have been made out of a, I don't know, toothpaste. I mean, not a toothpaste, but a toothbrush plastic. Damn, they went all out and got them a K-bar looking knife right there. But look at some of these things, man. And you tell me you get stabbed enough times with these things, chances are you ain't coming home. Look at this. They go as little as this to as big as this. You get stabbed with this knife or this knife, you ain't making it home. What do y'all think about these? I mean, these were recovered in San Quentin, I think. Which, you hit somebody in the head over the head with this multiple times, they're going to have a bad day. Don't you agree? And this is Department of Corrections, George J. Beto. This was the warden's key in the Beto unit, which is cool. I mean, it's still in mint condition. I do sometimes cash. I haven't in a while. I don't know what the hell that was. I think it was a pirate. And this was cool too because, you know, it says improvised rope. This 30-foot length of rope, originally 120 feet long, was made out of cotton sheets and used in an escape attempt from the Ward unit in Huntsville, Texas. Opening in 1849, the Ward unit is still in operation. It holds 1705 inmates and is in the location of the Texas Execution Chamber. We don't mess around here in Texas. We really don't. You know you can make rope out of toilet paper? Did you know that? You get toilet paper, you wet it, twist it, let it dry. Get some more, wet it, twist it, let it dry. Before long, you got a full-fledged rope to do as you wish with it. And there's your boy standing in front of the gas chamber. Can you imagine being shackled to this? And then all of a sudden, the fumes start filling up and you start choking. And next thing you know, you pass out. And then you're gone. I don't think they use the gas chamber anymore. And this is called Illinois electric chair. These leather restraints were part of the Cook County electric chair in Chicago from 1929 to 1962. 67 men were electrocuted in Cook County. Wow. Can you imagine being strapped with one of these and knowing you're about to get fried? They're about to cook you, bro. You're about to get cooked. And this is the electric chair helmet. This electric chair helmet was used in the last execution ever performed in the D.C. jail. On April 26, 1957, Robert Eugene Carter was executed for the murder of a D.C. police officer following a robbery. After Carter's execution, the D.C. jail's electric chair, nicknamed Old Sparky, was permanently retired. They put something over your head like this, they strap some wire around this and say, we're about to burn you up, bro. I was watching a video on YouTube one day, and this guy survived an electrocution because they didn't hook it up right. They electrocuted him 3 times before they killed him because it was not hooked up right. And it was a traveling electric chair at that. So they traveled with this electric chair. It just wasn't in one location. And this was Old Smoky, Tennessee's electric chair. So can you imagine being strapped into this? Put your arms here, your legs here, or your legs here. Put that hood on, strapped in with this. And then they say, fire it up, man in the hole. Yeah. Can you imagine that? We're about to fry you. There's the control. 1, 2, and 3. I couldn't do that. I could not do that. I think there was like 3 people that actually pushed these buttons where you really never knew who were doing it. This was my favorite right here, the guillotine. It used to be if you survived the drop, you walked back long ago. The guillotine was interesting to me. It always has been, because you put your head right here and your head, this thing drops, your head falls right here in this bucket. But the thing about it is you're not instantly dead. I mean, your body is still technically kind of alive, I think. So your head is down here because your brain is still functioning, right? Imagine being able to see at the bottom of that bucket. Be like, what the hell? And this is the draw and quarter manacles. A lot of this stuff is probably used for sex toys these days. As freaky as people are. Cat o' nine tails. So this was probably like a bullwhip. Military punishment. Great Britain, cat o' nine tails was used in corporal punishment to enforce prison discipline. God. Were designed with the female specifically in mind, such as with the breast ripper, coming in many shapes and forms. The talons were used, gruesome devices were heated before. So they would put this around their breast, scalding hot, and just grab and pull. Yeah, we were pretty brutal as human beings. And that's a replica of Alcatraz. I mean, can you imagine if you were used to sleeping at the head of the bed and there's the damn toilet? You'd be smelling that all night long. You might even be smelling it up here. I don't think that there was any mix-up in the architect of this cell. And there's the little sink, and there's your little desk that you have. And that's pretty much home. And that was a painting that I saw when I was walking in. And there is Alcatraz. So there is Theodore Beetle. I'm confused if this was the actual one because in that photo it looked orange. Maybe it's just the color just quit. I don't know. And there I got a close up of the passenger side with no seat in it. This is where he would abduct people and hold them down where they would not be able to be seen. And you know, I've always thought that was interesting, especially when he abducted one of those girls when he had his arm in a sling and he was trying to get them to help him with his sailboat. And he abducted that girl, raped her, and then nobody ever saw it, but somebody was mindful enough to capture an image of him and his vehicle on a camera. But he purposely removed his seat to be able to abduct individuals. Then we have Derringer's Dillinger. Then we have OJ's Golf Club. And there is the white Bronco. They had these on the walls, and I thought, it said, don't let porn dictate your sexual template. Pornography manufactures lies and markets them as fantasy. Porn can train the consumer's brain to sexualize, objectify, and dehumanize people. And 60% of students surveyed say they watch porn in order to learn more about sex and to fill in gaps in their sexual education. This was in the Bundy area. And there he is. Brian's idol. It said, this temporary exhibit looks at Ted Bundy's final crime, arrest, trial, and death. Please remember, no matter what someone looks like, you should practice safety measures and always use the buddy system. Ted Bundy's wife gives birth to a girl. I never knew he was married. Internet sources often show Rose Bundy's birth year as 1982, but this is incorrect. The announcement of her birth was published in several Florida newspapers in 1981. This fact is also reveled through Bundy's letters, where he references his daughters prior to October 1982. The issue of the Tallahassee Democrat discussing Rose's birth was published on November 5th, 1981. I'll let you. I zoomed in enough for you to read that. And that is supposedly his daughter right there. And this is the book that Ann Rule wrote, The Stranger Beside Me. The shocking true story of Ted Bundy, the all-American boy, mass murdered women, dramatic, chilling, shattering. And those letter. It's hard to read because it was like in the shadow. And I made a reference to this the other day. This was his dental cast because he had bite marks on some of his victims. It says, when investigators examined the body of victim Lisa Levy killed in her sleep in her dorm room, they found an odd bite mark on her left buttock. A fast-thinking police officer later ruled her against the abrasion while crime scene photos were taken. After Bundy's capture, investigators obtained a search warrant for a dental impression of Bundy's teeth after he refused voluntarily. They took him to a dentist to get the procedure done as a surprise to prevent Bundy from altering his teeth. The mold is completed by a dentist and revealed a distinctive, uneven pattern. These distinctive features, including the chips, alignment, and size of the teeth, were then able to be matched using this cast for comparison against the scale transparency of the photos taken of the bite mark. So I thought that was hella interesting right there. I remember reading about that, how he had an overbite of sort and his teeth were chipped in some parts. So when he bit her, obviously you would see the impression of the bite marks. And this was the last letter in the collection before his execution. Look at his writing. It is a plea from Bundy to Africano to cooperate in a motion to claim inadequate defense by Africano in the Kimberly Leach trial, which is the trial that carried out his death sentence. Bye-bye, Bundy. Double B bust. Come party in our new room. See, I was in high school when all this was going down. I didn't even know about Ted Bundy. I thought this was cool. His quote said, "The death penalty is a polite way of making that I was murdered. I will be murdered, and I'm sorry. The bottom line is the person that killed Kimberly Diane Loach is in the courtroom. I'm not begging for my life. You took it from me just to Kimberly Leach's was taken from her." So if he really said that stuff, then he was as delusional as they come. And there's Kimberly Leach, the 12-year-old. And these are Bundy's confirmed victims. That's a lot of them. The 12-year-old was the youngest. There's a 15-year-old. What was Leslie's friend's name? What did she say her name was? Did she say her name was Melissa? Melissa Ann Smith. I gotta ask her. Leslie, if you see this in the future, let me know if your friend's name is on this. Because this is Nancy Wilcox 16. That's a young one. There's a 15-year-old. There's a Lynette Culver in Idaho. 1975. I think that would be it. Lynette Culver. I don't know. Leslie, if you see this, comment down below. And let us know which one of these was your friend. It looks so different right there. There's the car again. There's some more Avia shoes or Asics. Benjamin Hopkins Paddock. And that's how they suit up to go detect bombs. And there's the bomb suit. There's the mechanical lies bomb finder, I guess. They had a police replica car in there where my nephew and my niece were able to get in there and play with the sirens and everything. They had a Nancy Grace display. Whose boots were they? And these were wow, I didn't know he wore those boots on this show. And this is John Imel. And this is Anna Saruk. Kind of like the dress she was wearing right there. There's Paul Murdaugh's duck call. Like I said, they have a lot of different things all in one case. So you had to be really looking out. And this is the last Super Bowl ticket from I can't remember what this was about. Michael Vick's stuff, I think, right here. Is the dog fighting evidence. Got jumper cables, a leather dog collar. And they had Selena stuff in there. John Lennon stuff. They have famous people that died. Gianni Versace. B.B. King. That's Marilyn Monroe's dress. Michael Jackson's. Like I said, I didn't see a lot of this when I went and snapped a picture, but by this point, we're getting tired. And this individual, let's see, there's your boy right there. Starring Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu, and Cameron Diaz, Full Throttle, the reboot. This was Charlie's Angels uniform that they used in Full Throttle. And that is it. I guess on the next live, I will do the Battleship and go through it and show you guys so tell me what y'all think in the comments or in the chat, what you thought about the part 2. The part 1 I did this morning. So this one lasted 2 hours. The one this morning lasted an hour. So that's like 3 hours worth of stopping and explaining stuff. And I think I'm going to lay down for a nap. Lay down and then get up and maybe get my day started. Unpack my truck. Unpack my luggage. Yeah, go watch part 1 and then watch this one. And tell me what you think in the comments. This is a lot more interesting to me than rehashing something that's already been completed. You know what I mean? Like, people have asked me, "Hey, 12, are you gonna do the paperwork? Are you going to talk about the Idaho 4Ks?" I don't think so. Have a good class, Rondi. Thank you for being in here. Cash, I think I'm going to call it a day, and whoever else is in here, thank y'all for being here. And like I said, I wanted to get a lot of this stuff on a video format. That way, if I decide to talk about these cases in the future, I'll have them already in a video format. All I have to do is just go back and talk about them. Well, y'all have an awesome day, and I hope that you guys enjoyed that, because you know, sometimes it's awesome to see different portions of different avenues. That we're not shown every day. You know what I'm saying? Y'all stay safe as well. I watched a lot of Annie Elise on the way home. And one thing she said that cracked me up a little bit, she said, "Don't murder anybody. Stay safe out there." Those are great words of wisdom. Y'all be good. I guess I'm going to end it with my intro because I really like it. Well, here we go.
Ready, set, go!
Gage Investigating, the best true crime channel out there.
I'm a true crime channel.
12 Gauge Investigators is the best.
12 Gauge Investigators the best.
12 Gauge Investigating, he's the best.
Prince George's County 911 Center. What is the location of the emergency?
Across 4709 40th Avenue.
You say
It's a fire, and it's catching fast.
4709?
Yeah, 4709.
Okay, what city is that, ma'am?
Hyattsville, sorry.
And what's your name?
take on the darkness, stare down deceit. Murder in the headlines, justice in the beat. From cold case whispers to killers in disguise, we rip off the mask, expose all the lies. Facts like bullets reload and deliver. Truth cuts deep like a blade in a river. Corruption shakes when the mic goes live. We dig where others won't survive. Keeps rolling through the smoke. Truth hits hard, no time for a joke. Deceit, murder, we name every name. No restraint, no shame, just flesh.
12 gauge investigator is the best.
When you're in Foley, come get your hair cut where 12 gets his at Nick's Barbershop. 12 gauge is the best. We love you.
12 gauge investigative is the best.